Thank you very much, first of all, कि आपने time निकाला और आप हमारे लिए आई. Well, all of my guests here at QuickChat, we always have like a formal thoda sa introduction. So Rabiya, if I were to sort of ask you to, sort of tell us something about yourself. So, आप क्या कहना पसंद करोगी?
The age-old interview question, right? Tell us something about yourself.
Just so like nobody gets confused.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I have many different eclectic interests, but I'd say right now I'm an entrepreneur running my own business that I started about a year ago.
The best thing jo banda kehta hai.
Yes.
I'm an entrepreneur.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Perfect.
Running my own business, finally. That's what I do.
That's very nice. मैं ना आपकी I know about your business and everything, but we'll come on to the business side बाद में. But let's talk about how you sort of आपकी journey के बारे में बात करते हैं on becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
ठीक है. So why don't you tell us something about let's start from how you went for the undergrad program. You were there at Harvard. And why don't you tell us something about going to Harvard?
Yeah. So maybe I'll start from the beginning. Right? Look, I think I come from a very kind of privileged background in the sense that I was always encouraged to work hard, to follow my dreams, and I was never discouraged from really any interest I had. Right? I did pretty much everything and anything under the sun, even as a kid.
Really?
And I think that I studied science, I studied literature. I also took this course on food and nutrition where we literally made food in school. So I was kind of doing everything.
That's very nice.
I think that kind of inculcated from a very young age, and obviously credit to my parents, this love for kind of learning and doing things and being active.
Yeah.
And so I think that is kind of the start of the journey. There was never a very strong focus on a particular school or a particular country to go to, never. The idea was just to work hard, to do well, and to learn, really. That was what was encouraged. So that's where the journey started,
Okay. Most of us, I don't know, maybe it's just me, the way I think, but ऐसे अगर कहें कि when you talk about Harvard, it's one of the most known institutions out there in the world, ठीक है. So was Harvard always a goal कि भाई Harvard जाना है?
Never.
Really?
Never.
So how did you choose and
Look,
why Harvard?
I said,
Harvard?
How Harvard? Yeah, it was never the goal.
Yeah.
I actually had some amazing women in my school that I looked up to who were older than me. I went to an all-girls school, and I think in some ways that also helped because you don't think about the boy versus girl thing. You kind of think girls can do everything, right?
Yeah.
You have the shararti girl, you have the sporty girl.
The padaku
It's
girl.
like Barbie world, right?
Yeah.
You can be whatever you want to be.
Without the Kens.
Exactly.
Okay.
Without the Kens.
Okay.
And also, I come from a family of 4 girls.
Achha.
So a lot of female energy at home also.
That's very nice.
And many strong women in my family, my mother, my grandmother, lots of inspiration. So to answer your question, how Harvard, I just wanted to really just do well in life, right? And my parents had always encouraged me to kind of work hard. So जब मैं colleges के लिए apply कर रही थी, like I said, I had many eclectic interests. I applied to Aga Khan and LUMS and the usual suspects.
Yeah.
And then we had a close family friend who said, "Why aren't you applying to Harvard?" And I thought, "Chalo, idhar bhi apply kar lete hain." So kind of as part of the usual process, just kind of applied. Really, it was not a dream. It was not something that I really wanted to do. Just happened.
That's very nice.
Yeah, and I think it helps in some ways to put your head down and actually do things rather than obviously you should dream, but I think there's a lot of value and barakat in actually doing the work. And I think this is very important for any entrepreneur or any professional. There's value in doing things more so than just dreaming.
Definitely.
So I think you have to balance them out.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So Rabiya, मुझे ये बात बताओ कि Harvard के बाद, how was the experience at Harvard and how did it actually help in shaping, the journey that follows?
Yeah, no, very good question. Look, like I said, I went to Harvard. I had never been to the US before. So the first time I landed in America was when I, as a freshman got there to go to college.
सही है.
So big culture shift, a big shift in learning, right? I went to a British education system, went through a British education system my entire educational life. And then now I'm in this American system, completely different culture, very different, academically very
college,
different. Exactly, but it really opened up my world because in the British system, you're taught, and this is academically, but also otherwise, you're taught to pick, right? Like, आप sciences pick कर लेते हैं, आप उस path पे चल पड़ते हैं. Engineering has a different path, and like I said, I kind of played with that already when I was in Pakistan. I was taking many different subjects, but in the US, they really encourage this concept of like you don't even have to decide what you're studying until your second year.
Really?
Yeah. So until you're a sophomore, you don't decide your major. And they have many requirements as part of the undergraduate program to take many different courses.
Yeah.
So I think, and this is a quote from somebody else, they had asked these group of people who had their 40th graduation anniversary of Harvard, what was the best thing about Harvard, or what was the thing that they learned? And this really stuck with me because I think this is the best thing I find about my experience. This guy said that the best part of my experience was that I left Harvard feeling like I could learn anything. Yeah. That's what I took away.
I think that's the most important thing as well, na? Because I totally understand what you're saying. Other than the degree itself and the name, ke haan bhai, it's Harvard. But I think the real thing jo ke aapko value deti, it's that you get to see what other people are doing, that sense of thoda sa competition and knowing where you are and where you have to go.
Absolutely.
It's that exposure overall.
And I think, not only that, I think in some ways when you're at an institution that has such bright minds, and I think some of that also happens in a place like Quick Office, right? Naturally, when you're exposed to people who are ambitious, driven, smart,
Definitely.
doing interesting things, that naturally motivates you.
Yeah.
So I'd say it sort of inculcates this very healthy competition in some ways, but also it's inspiring. And that's the best way to say it, right? Like it inspires you to be better, to do more. So I think it's really important. I mean, for me, stepping out of Pakistan, going to Harvard, it was very important to get exposed to so many intelligent, smart people who were so fascinating and so well-rounded. And again, like I said, they all had this love for learning. So the best thing for me that experience taught me was it's not about what you study. It's not about, honestly, where you go to school.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that going to Harvard makes you a much better person or a much better entrepreneur than going to a different school, right?
Yeah.
It's actually about what you do with the opportunities you're given.
Yeah.
And that confidence to learn. And is tarah, like you were saying before, being here can be beneficial to an entrepreneur because they may learn things they don't know from other people.
So, jitna important university mein hota na, it's like
it's an ongoing cycle.
Yeah, so if you call it a sequel, theek hai, at work, I think it's even more important.
Absolutely.
Because here you're in a very practical situation.
Bilkul.
Ab aapne yahi hai ki like, I don't know if it's safe to say, but yes, I believe, ये मेरा अपना opinion है, कि मैंने time बहुत ज़ाया किया है on literally just finding a dot where to start from, right? ठीक है, एक empty canvas है, I came back after my masters and मैं बैठा हूँ कि अच्छा यार शुरू कहाँ से करना?
सोचना.
हाँ, like should I hunt for a job? And then because you're in that process, अब 2-3 महीने गुजर गए हैं, suddenly I realize, wait a second. मेरे पास job नहीं है. It's been 3 months. I'm unemployed, and that stress starts building up for no real reason. ठीक है.
Yeah.
If only I could go back in time and tell myself that just relax. All you need to do is just start from one place.
Yeah.
And that's what I did eventually.
Yeah.
That's what I did. And वहाँ से हम आगे चले, सारा कुछ हुआ. But एक आपने बड़ी interesting जो है ना, मुझे आपकी बात से समझ आई है. What would your opinion be कि do you really think if a person has to do this one thing, एक skill बनाना है, do you really think उसके लिए एक अलग डिग्री ही चाहिए, जाके enroll ही करना है, वो चीज़ें ऐसी चीज़ें करनी हैं? What's your opinion on that?
Look, I think the honest answer, it depends on what you're trying to do, right? अगर आपने डॉक्टर बनना है, I'm not out here saying you can watch YouTube videos and become a surgeon. You can't, definitely. Right? You have to go through a process.
Yeah.
If you want to be a lawyer, you have to pass the bar or whatever the legal, framework is.
Same for architects, by the way.
Same for architects.
You can't mess around with buildings.
I was on the trading, and we can talk about that. I was on the trading floor before this. You had to pass certain certifications to be able to give financial advice, right?
Yeah.
There are certain laws and regulations you have to follow.
Yeah, definitely.
उसको ignore करने या उसको fulfill करने के अलावा, I think it's very important to have this confidence that you can actually learn a lot of stuff on your own, especially in this day and age, right? Like the internet, you have access to, millions and millions of books and research and whatnot. So I truly think that there are, with the exception of certain professions and certain things, there is so much out there. And there are so many people out there, experts that you can talk to, that are now with Zoom and the phone.
Definitely.
You don't really even need to meet in person. So I think that it's very important to remember that you can learn and continue to grow without getting that degree, without spending maybe the money that you can't afford or don't have. But that process of growth should continue.
Definitely. Yahan pe na, like, just to add on to this, I think it's very important for people to realize, especially like आप उनको entrepreneurs कहें या आप उनको young entrepreneurs कहें, but I would like to address them as individuals who really want to do something in life, ठीक है, or struggling with finding what to do. So I think the best thing is to just literally start doing it. Workspace providers here in Pakistan, I believe, are doing a huge, वो एक कहते नहीं, a game changer role, because eventually क्या होता है कि घर बैठ के you can definitely just go into a very dangerous loop where you just on repeat आप सोच रहे हो कि ये मैं करूँगा, it's still in the head, there's zero execution, and then again the other day there's a new idea and you're like, oh, this can work better than the previous one, and there's a loop वो चलता जाता.
और I think इसके ऊपर research भी है, right? Like there is value to having a schedule.
Definitely.
There is value to having, and it may be different for different people, right? Some people work better at night, some people work better during the day. But there is value to getting ready in the morning, and I think a lot of us felt this during COVID. Right? I had a corporate job during COVID, and I realized that actually when I'm working like ऊपर से dress, नीचे से pajamas, I'm not as productive. And I'm a little bit more tempted to, relax, sit back, versus when you get up in the morning, get dressed, show up to work or a workplace or an office, a quick office, whatever it may be, that works for you. I think it's very important. And you don't need to have the perfect idea to do that.
Well, in fact, talking about the corporate job thing. Why don't we address
the corporate
something?
Job.
The corporate job, exactly. So, I won't want to say it, but I would like कि आप बताएं कि what's this corporate job that you're talking about?
Absolutely. So after I graduated college, I ended up working for an investment bank in the US called Goldman Sachs. And while I was there, I was working on their trading floor. In the financial kind of market space.
यार ये experience के बारे में थोड़ा आप मुझे like tell me the real picture and how you actually felt being there, the trading floor. And this is New York.
Yes,
right?
This was in New York at their headquarters.
Exactly.
Beautiful building. So when you go, you should check out the office. It's very nice.
Definitely, yeah.
But yeah, so I was this Pakistani girl who had not been in America before coming for college, and now I'm on Wall Street in one of the toughest kind of intense. You've seen Wolf of Wall Street, right?
Yes,
like shouting,
I've been there as
open trading
but
floor.
Not, of course, not in perspective of working and everything. But I know how New
what
York
I'm talking
is.
about.
Yes. New York is uski, like it's a very fast pace.
Like
you can actually feel
energy.
it.
You can feel the energy. Yes. And so for me, that was not something that I had planned, but sort of stumbled upon it also. And just kind of fell in love with it. I was in the commodities group to start, so we were trading, sugar, oil, natural gas, and all of that was very familiar because I come from an agricultural family in Pakistan, cotton. So I was like, okay, I understand this.
Nice.
So started off in commodities, then started doing what we call algo trading. So I was writing programs that helped large asset managers and institutional clients invest their money. So it was basically computer-based rules that would help a pension fund, an endowment, a sovereign wealth fund invest very, very large amounts of money. And so that was extremely kind of an extremely rewarding experience because I was in my early 20s. I was working with like 40, 50-year-old CIOs and advising them essentially on what to do with their large sums of money that they had.
Definitely.
So really very like rewarding and cool experience.
That sense of accomplishment.
And also you learn a lot from these people, right?
Definitely.
Like they get to where they are because they've done something right. So at a very young age, you get a lot of exposure and a lot of opportunity to kind of grow and learn. And so I just got very lucky that way. And I had an amazing team while I was there. I was very well supported. So really, it's a very pleasant time of my life. And I think the biggest thing, and this is something that I think is very important, especially for women in Pakistan, is that you need to develop financial autonomy and self-worth in your life and in
100%,
your,
I agree.
And I think, the reason why I say it's very important for women is because for men, it's kind of, they're expected to do that anyway in our society. Many of them.
Like, just to put it safely out
Yes.
there, because let's call it like a popular opinion that yes, this is how men think technically. अच्छा, पैसे कमा रहे हैं, what to do, कहाँ invest करने हैं.
उनके लिए expectation होती है.
बहुत ज़्यादा.
जी, बिल्कुल.
Yeah. And then of course I know a lot of women जो के बहुत सोचती हैं, क्योंकि fine, we've earned this sum of money, we have cash, we have this, हमने कहीं पे invest करना. But like personally, वो क्या होता है कि maybe उस तरीके से they need sort of like a push उस तरीके से कि yes, talk about managing your expenses, talk about finances.
I'm very passionate about this topic, and I actually during the pandemic started a non-profit to help women invest their money. And
really?
उसकी एक story आपको मैं बताती हूँ. Basically, I was this woman in finance, and there aren't that many women on these trading floors, right? In most meetings that I would be in, I was luckily on an all-female team, so we were like an anomaly on the trading floor. But I think when you are a minority in an industry, you start noticing things, right? So I noticed that on the trading floor, all the women, although they were very good at their jobs, arguably better than the men in some instances, they were not talking about money, even though we were dealing with money all day long. And the men would always talk about investments. The men would always say, hey, my so-and-so friend started this company, do you want to invest in it? And these were all my peers. So it wasn't that they were making more money or anything like that. It was just that women are, I think, generally, and this is not just true for Pakistan, this is globally, we're conditioned to kind of shy away from the topic. And so I was very interested in why that was, because main khud ek culprit thi. I was doing this myself, right? I was not managing my own money well. And so when I looked into it, being there, I wasn't in my early days. Then I obviously changed. And I realized the reason, and there's actually numbers that support this, right? Women on average keep 70% of their assets in cash. So if I have 100 rupees, 70 I will keep in cash on average if I'm a woman.
That's very interesting, because I don't know why, but it is relatable.
It's true, right?
It is.
And the other interesting thing about women is that we don't want to talk about money. And I looked into this, and there's research on it, and there are reasons for it, right? Like in the olden days, women weren't allowed to own property. We weren't allowed to earn money. We weren't allowed to vote.
Yeah.
So as women were kept out of these decisions, I think naturally that, it's evolved and now it's changed, but some of that stuck and stayed. And so now you're in this modern world where even when women are competing with men in the same jobs, we're not really doing anything with our money. And the other interesting thing, which I think is so fascinating, why I started my non-profit, is that women also live longer than men.
I'm sorry, could you just tell me?
Yes, so the non-profit is called HerCapital.
HerCapital.
Yes. So two things that I want to tell you, like for the audience, right? One, women generally get paid less than men. This is also true, right? If you do the same job, you generally get paid a little bit less.
Yeah.
Second thing that's interesting is women live longer. So the fact that we keep our money in cash, we live longer than men, and we get paid less than men is a recipe for disaster. Right? Like you have less money and you're not even growing your money. So I thought, okay, this needs to change. I found another woman who cared about this problem. We started this non-profit together.
I love how you've shaped this problem. It's like, it's very interesting because मैंने कभी इस perspective से सोचा नहीं. This is true. But yes.
So we said, okay, women need to take control of our money. We're just as smart, if not smarter than men. So let's, fix this. So started this non-profit. Really our mission was to empower women and talk about money and teach them how to manage their money. That's something I knew how to do because I was doing it professionally.
Yeah.
And so we basically started
when did you start this?
The non-profit in COVID, 2020, 2021.
Oh, 20. Yeah. So it's been like roughly 2.5, 3 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so we did a lot of like webinars, educating women. We have an entire online library now that people can go and read. The other thing that we realized through this process, and I love this, so I'm talking about it, just stop me if it's boring.
No, of course.
Another thing we realized was that all the financial literature, like financial literacy, was very boring. It was kind of designed for like old men to read, and they wrote it. So we thought, okay, this needs to be more women-centric and more relevant to women. So let's talk about the things that women care about when it comes to financial planning, right? Women are often the ones that are making all the financial decisions. Even in Pakistan, you notice this, right? Ghar ke sare,
Most households, yes.
Yes, women, but they're not the ones that get to make the big investment decisions.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's very interesting. Like the spending is happening in one place and the investing is happening.
And they're taking full control and responsibility
but they're
for
not taking, so they can do it, but they're not taking control over the actual growing of the wealth.
Exactly.
So we
on
thought,
where
okay,
to
let's
invest
change
and how
this.
to invest
And you'll be shocked. Within the first 3 to 4 months, we got so much interest. I think we had women from over 20 different countries interested in our platform. I think even just from Pakistan, we have 15,000-20,000 women that wanted to learn about personal finance, understand how they can invest their money.
एक मेरा सवाल है.
जी.
And from out of these 15,000-20,000 women that actually approached, right? How many, like, do you have like a data उसमें कि how many of those women were actually उस तरीके से privileged or coming from the slightly underprivileged background?
It was a big mix. Again,
Achha,
it was a mix, and the reason why I say that is because obviously there's some limitations there, right? Like we were speaking in English, so you had to be able to understand English. We were also very heavily present on social media initially. So anybody who had access to an Instagram and then also could speak English was usually the audience. So that already filters out some of Pakistan's population. But then there was a big kind of wealth gap in between the types of people who were reaching out. It was single moms who were supporting their children and were working in schools. It was women who were in bad marriages who had saved money and wanted to figure out how to grow that wealth. Like they had just jewelry and stuff that they wanted to grow. It was women who came from very wealthy like business families who said, okay, I get paid this much, but I'm keeping it in cash. What do I do? So it was a very big...
That's very nice.
It was women that worked at Google and Microsoft and, you know, very interesting...
But what a lovely sort of like a startup, yeah, kya kehte hain, business idea, but it's like a non-profit. But it's a very, very nice initiative because I'm thinking, okay, let's suppose if they're like, hamari audience mein bhi, there are a lot of people who work at co-working office spaces and generally entrepreneurs bhi hain.
Bilkul.
And there's a mix, theek hai. And I think this is going to be extremely beneficial for, you know, especially women who are actually listening to this.
And I think when I moved back to Pakistan, I realized that, you know, people are doing really good work, but with the inflation the way it is in the country, and there are some limitations to what you can invest in, people would really benefit from understanding better what their investment options are, right? Because in Pakistan, the real kind of the first thing people think of is plot khareed lete hain. Right? That's what the first thing is, let's buy some plots and like have some land. But there are so many other things that you can do with your money and have a real portfolio, and it can be something that grows on the side. You don't have to do anything, right? But it's important to know and understand it. And it's not rocket science.
एक मेरा ये भी सवाल है कि how long were you there at Goldman?
So I was there after graduating until a year ago. So 7.5 years almost.
7.5 years?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of...
It's a long time.
काफी time invest किया आपने उधर.
Yes.
And like, कौन सी position पे आपने start किया? At what position did you?
So I started as an intern actually.
Really?
Yes, I interned there.
And this was while you were studying?
Yes, so I interned there as a summer intern.
Okay.
And then I joined full time when I graduated.
Right.
So I joined as an analyst. And then when I left, I was a vice president.
You're the vice president?
Yes.
In 7.5 years. Wow. Were you always like, was there like a goal कि यार vice president तक जाना है या?
Look, when I first got to Goldman, my goal was that I'll do this for 2 years and leave. That was the original goal, which is what a lot of people do. They go into investment banking for a couple of years and then they go do something else. But like I said, when I was there, I really did fall in love with the job.
Yeah.
I was working with some amazing people. I was getting a lot of responsibility as a very young person. And those 2 years turned into 4. But every year I would evaluate it. Every year I would think, okay, do I want to stay longer or do I want to leave now?
Achha.
And somewhere along, one important thing that my dad told me when I was there, because I'd ask him, look, okay, this happened, should I stay, should I leave? He would say, look, you need to stay until you feel like you don't want your boss's job. Jab tak you want your boss's job, stay there.
Achha.
So when I became a vice president, I was like, I don't want my boss's job because that's the same job with less fun and more responsibility.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'll leave now. That's how it transpired.
Oh, achha. VP ke baad bhi you were like, okay, let's come back to Pakistan.
Yes. And actually, jokes apart, I think a big part of staying at Goldman for as long as I did was also to build some sort of a safety net, right? Like you get, these jobs are very demanding, but you get compensated well.
Exactly, that's what I was wondering.
So
Okay,
a
you
part
worked
of
at
it was
Goldman.
also,
You made a lot of money.
I did well, alhamdulillah. Allah
That's
ka
very
shukr
nice, man.
hai.
ठीक है,
Yes.
fine. So now me assuming कि fine that you're making good money, you're the VP there, ठीक है. And then what is it that made you come back to Pakistan? कि नहीं भाई, अब 7-8 साल मैंने गुजार लिए, अब वापस आना है like.
Look, many things. I think when I started HerCapital, which was this non-profit, it kind of gave me a taste of being an entrepreneur, right? It was a non-profit, but I was kind of running this entire organization. We, at one point, had 17 employees in the non-profit that we were working with. So it was really amazing to, I mean, at Goldman also, I was running a business within the organization and I had my own team. But building something from scratch had its own kind of fun and thrill.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It was a complete
so
thrill,
that I think where that spark was ignited. And then I come from an agricultural background, like I said, but my father built a business from scratch, and I kind of it's as old as I am. I saw him build that.
Yeah.
So somewhere there was that kind of, I look up to him. So there was that too, that I wanted to do something of my own at some point.
And वो chances यहाँ बेहतर थे पाकिस्तान.
Yes, and so when I was evaluating, okay, do I stay in the US and build in America, or do I move back to Pakistan? ये दो options थी, right? I have ties to Pakistan and I was living in America. The kinds of problems that you get to work on in a country like Pakistan are just so much more, I would say, so much more low-hanging fruit in some ways that I thought, okay, there's no, when you rationally think about it, ignore the emotional stuff, ignore, the fun stuff about living in a city like New York City, real, like practical, like where can I build a business that will do what I wanted to do? And I'll tell you what my goals were, right? It was hands down, Pakistan was the right choice for me. And I think you have to think about what's important for you, because for everyone, the answer may be different.
It's different.
Yeah.
So like most people, सिर्फ ये debate चल रही है आजकल कि अच्छा, how do you get a ticket out of Pakistan? Because looking at कि वो inflation बहुत है, and well, this is true कि जितनी inflation हो रही है, income and especially everybody who has a job and every person who is working salaried, उनके लिए बहुत मुश्किल हो रहा है definitely. But then again, ये बात बहुत कम होती है कि okay, fine, where to उसके अलावा. Like even if you look at the UK, you look at so many other countries, वहाँ पे भी बहुत difficult situation है, right? So इस time पे जहाँ पे ये सारी discussion हो रही है, and you literally coming, you were back in 2022. It's been a year and a half,
it's been a year
right?
And a half.
So how do you feel about that? So matlab, are you regretting coming back, or you're just like, nahi, I made this decision and it's perfectly fine?
Look, I think there's no denying the troubles that our country is going through, and there is a real economic problem, and I am very aware of that, right? But like I was saying, you have to see what works for you. There was a reason, like I said, I stayed in the US and worked at Goldman for a very long time, and that has given me the ability to take some risk. And I always tell this to younger people, right? Like, I think entrepreneurship is glorified in this generation, in our generation, a lot. And people talk about the success stories, like we all grew up seeing Zuckerberg and these big companies come to being. That is all true, but I think it's very important to take calculated risks. Understand where you stand, understand how much money you can put into a business or an idea, and have a safety fund or have a backup. So for me, I'm quite risk averse as a person actually. And so for me, it was very important to feel quite financially safe before I took the step to become an entrepreneur, right? That's why I did the corporate job for a while. And also it was a very calculated risk, because I thought, okay, this is a job that I know I can come back to, because I've now made enough of a name for myself or have enough of a platform that it's something that's sort of a safety net. So for me personally, because I'm not as risk-taking as some people may be, it was a really important thing to do, and I made that decision. For somebody else, that might not be the right thing to do. But to answer your actual question, which is sab mein Pakistan aana, how do I feel? The honest answer is, like I said, you can't deny the problems in Pakistan, but the honest answer is that I think it's a real privilege. And the reason why is because I think जो अभी पाकिस्तान में हालात हैं, you have to have a certain, like I said, either some amount of success or some amount of self worth that you've built, right? That you can then take that risk on.
Exactly.
So that's why I really feel like I'm in a privileged position. That I had the option to decide whether I want to move back or not, उससे भी you get a lot of contentment in your decision because you actively chose to do something.
Definitely, yeah, I understand.
And it was a very conscious choice.
Achha.
And I'm not even talking about the other external benefits that you get by being in Pakistan, right? Like there's a big social family aspect to it. It's our country, and you feel really good about building something here and creating value. I'm running an export.
Of course, and I think it's much easier doing something here, no? Like look at the sort of, क्योंकि यहाँ पे हमारे पास वही बात है, we have a lot of privileges though कि हमें नजर नहीं आती, not until we leave the country.
Look, in some ways, building in Pakistan is very frustrating, right? Yeah. Like you want to pull your hair out every day. Systems नहीं चल रहे होते. There are a lot of things that are very wrong.
Yeah.
But the big picture thing for anybody who is building in Pakistan, whatever the reasons may be, maybe they're stuck, maybe they chose to come back like I did.
Wow.
Whatever the reasons are, I think the beauty of being in Pakistan is that there's so much low-hanging fruit, like I was saying before, right? Like the kinds of problems you get to work on here, like when I came back and I was thinking about what to do, I moved back and I didn't know what I was going to do. Seriously, that's how I did it. My dad said, "Kashtiyan jalao. Otherwise, you're never going to move back. If you want to move back, just burn your bridges and move back." So that's exactly what I did. So there's a theme here, right? I'm listening to my father a lot, but he's a wise man. So I moved back and I didn't know what I was going to do. But one thing that I realized was the kinds of problems that I could work on here. In America, those solutions already exist. Like somebody did them 50 years ago.
Exactly.
So यहाँ पे I was like, ये भी नहीं हुआ हुआ. This hasn't been done. This hasn't been done. Or the things that are being done can be improved upon so easily, right? So that I think is the beauty of Pakistan. And so if you are here for whatever reason, maybe you chose to come back like I did, or maybe you're forced to stay here because you
or maybe
can't
you don't
leave.
have a choice.
Yeah, maybe you don't have a choice. But if you are here, make the most of it.
Make the most of it.
And there is a lot of opportunity, I think.
That's very
despite the kind of gloomy economic scenario.
Perfect. The last thing, sorry, I would like to ask is that you are currently running this non-profit जिसमें you're sort of like guiding, helping women how to invest their money.
Yeah.
आप मुझे थोड़ा अपना बता सकते हो कि what is it like, let's suppose यहाँ पे what is it that you have been advising? Okay, let's suppose there's somebody who's doing a job, she's saved up a lot of money and she has some cash with her. क्या investment opportunities हैं Pakistan में especially? How would you advise someone?
Look, it's challenging, right? Because everybody has a different situation and you never want to give blanket financial advice because बहुत सारी चीजें देखनी पड़ती हैं, right? It's sort of like giving somebody medical advice. You always want to know their medical history. You want to know what their background is. You want to know their genetic, if they have anything in the family. Financial advice is very similar. So you never want to say,
you just made it very technical.
सारी पाकिस्तानी औरतें ये करें, कभी भी नहीं ये होगा answer, right? Or even men, right? Everybody has a different situation, but the big picture things I can talk about a few that you should think about, right? The first thing is understanding your spending and your budgeting, right? सबसे important चीज़ ये, अमूमन even in America and in the West, many people don't know what they're doing with their money. If you ask them, okay, give me a breakdown of your spending, like how much are you spending and what are you spending on, big buckets, and how much are you saving? They don't know, right? They're getting a paycheck, they're living paycheck to paycheck, and that's their life. So the first step to financial planning is to understand your lifestyle, understand how much are you spending and how much are you saving, and what out of what you are spending, can you save more, right?
Yeah.
That's the first step, because अगर आपके पास saving ही नहीं है, so there's no point of talking about investing.
Yeah.
So the first step is that.
Now that you're saying all these things, it's not only women.
Yeah, it's everyone.
Definitely.
And then I think a big part of financial planning is goal setting. Very big part, right? आप किसी nutritionist के पास जाते हैं, or a psychologist or a doctor, and they'll ask you कि अच्छा आपका goal क्या है? Like, are you trying to get thin? Are you trying to get fit? Are you trying to, like a trainer, trying to get strong?
Definitely.
Financial planning is the same way. It's like, are you trying to buy a new car? Are you trying to buy a new house? Do you want to just get richer? Like, what is your goal? And then depending on your goal, you'll be given some.
But I don't think that's easy to identify.
But that's what
if
you need
you ask
to identify.
me, what do I want to do? Like, what's my goal? I'd say all three of them.
Okay, great. So then you can plan for all three of them.
Yeah,
but some people very strongly are like, I'm getting married and I want to have an amazing wedding. That's my goal.
Achha.
For the next year, right? Somebody could say, look, I have 3 kids and I want to send them to college.
And that's of
my
course,
goal.
हर चीज़ के लिए वही different
हर चीज़ के लिए
right?
जो आपका गोल है उसके हिसाब से आप डिसाइड करते हो कितना आप रिस्क ले सकते हो और कितना आप कितनी आपको सेफ इन्वेस्टमेंट करनी है, राइट? अगर कोई 70 साल का है और वो कह रहा है मैंने रिटायरमेंट के लिए प्लानिंग करनी है, उसकी इन्वेस्टमेंट स्ट्रैटेजी वर्सेस कोई 20 साल का बच्चा है, उसकी इन्वेस्टमेंट स्ट्रैटेजी विल बी ड्रास्टिकली डिफरेंट बिकॉज यू हैव 60 years to invest and the other guy has 10 years. So what risk they can take, how much they're going to earn, their earning potential, all of those are, it's sort of like it's a art and a science, right? All of those inputs go in and then you figure out what is a recommended strategy for that person. But uske liye ek basic understanding of your spending habits and budgeting is important, and then goal setting is very important. What are you working towards? And that requires self-reflection. And then obviously then you can understand asset classes, you can think through, like I was saying, people think of plots in Pakistan.
पहली चीज ही ज़हन में ही आती है.
America में people think of stocks.
But I think that's, I don't know, but मेरी assumption ये भी है कि real estate ने दिया भी बहुत कुछ है.
Yes,
जो हमारी बड़ी इस तरह की बातें हैं.
And it's a very accessible investment in Pakistan. That's why people do it.
I've been hearing it कि भाई ये अंकल रातों रात rich हो गए, ये जी यहाँ इनकी तो तकदीर बदल गई. But
think about the barrier to entry, right? A woman who has maybe saved 5 lakhs, अब वो क्या defense में plot खरीदेगी? She can't. But you can do something with your 5 lakhs, right? Maybe it's putting it in a savings account. Maybe it's buying some stocks with it. Maybe it's a combination. Maybe it's investing it in gold. There are many different types of things you can invest in.
Definitely.
And even in a country like Pakistan where the financial markets are not as advanced, even then there are many things you can do. Up to cryptocurrencies is a whole other avenue, which I don't know, in Pakistan I think it's not allowed, but there are many
so many people just investing money there as well.
But there are many avenues, right? So understanding them, learning about them, that's step 1, and then you take it from there.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's very insightful जितनी भी बातें की हैं, and मुझे ऐसा लग रहा है कि we'd have to sit again in another session, typically just talking about HerCapital and sort of maybe discussing how you've guided various, थोड़े precedents
different scenarios we can do,
because
yes,
it's very
absolutely.
interesting. Like as soon as you told me that, I was like, no, wait a second, this is going to be helpful for so many people, because I believe हमारी एक जो generation है ना, it sort of needs to have an idea कि हाँ यार, you need to have financial goals, you need to have this पूरे एक streamline करना चाहिए आपको. How are you planning on achieving them? It is so important.
And I love what you said when I was talking about women. You said, but हम तो आदमी और हम भी ये करते हैं, right? Because it's true.
Like I don't have goals उस तरीके से.
Yeah, but you absolutely should.
Exactly, because when you were actually talking about it, I was like, wait a second, do I have a financial goal? मैं तो बस ये कह रहा हूँ कि चलो आज जितने पैसे हैं, कल को इससे थोड़े से ज़्यादा हो, या maybe मैं survive कर लूँ इस तरीके से ना.
But how you act will change when you have that goal.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's important to have that.
Maybe it's because I'm an architect. मुझे पता नहीं क्यों. I don't expect much. But चले, it was great having you. Thank you so much for taking
Thank you for
time.
having me.
And I don't think this is the last time. I think this is the start to having many more sessions with you.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.